The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Welcome, friends, to Roleplaying Unlimited presents Out of Character. How we doing tonight? We have Evil Dawn and Jason, otherwise known as Raven, as usual as our guest hosts here. And as a special guest, we have Tinkerbell right there in the center of the screen. Say hello, everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey everyone!
We hope you all had a wonderful week since our last stream, or since the last time we did Out of Character. Our last stream was actually last night for the Agent Orange conclusion. Make sure to catch that on our Twitch page if you've not yet done so. Otherwise, we'll be doing the rerun here in a couple days. Now, Tink is another friend of Dawn's. We had Greg on a few weeks ago as well as a special guest, and tonight we have Tink to talk about Renaissance fairs, role-playing games, and a few more topics, whatever happens to come up throughout the course of our conversation here. I'd like to kind of get things started with, as far as the correlation between the two, role-playing games and Renaissance fairs, which of those came first for you, Tink?
I think you're on silent there, Dan.
Yeah, we got I'd like to, and then everything cut off.
Oh no! Well, let's take two then. Basically, I'd like to start with the correlation between role-playing games and Renaissance fairs. And for you, Tink, which of those came first?
So for me, that's a good question. I think they both kind of happened in the same year, but I want to say role-playing games came first.
Did they tie into each other? Like, did one lead into being involved in the other, or were they kind of two separate things?
For me, they were really kind of two separate things in the beginning. My older brother wanted to run a D&D campaign because he didn't have enough friends, so he grabbed all of us, his siblings, to play. And then later on that year, a theater group I was in started doing the Renaissance thing as a fundraiser. So they did a vendor thing at the Renaissance Fair.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It's interesting because there are so many similarities between people who are involved in both hobbies that to independently become exposed to both of them is definitely interesting, I find.
Do you find that doing Renaissance fairs and stuff helps you with your theater and your acting and everything?
Probably, although I haven't been active in acting in, I want to say 12, 13 years. It's been a long time since I did any actual acting.
So what's your favorite thing about going to Renaissance fairs?
I think my favorite thing is the people. When you are part of guilds and things like that, and you go every year and you go to the same fairs, you see a lot of the same people all the time. And it's like you have a whole nother family just waiting there for you. It's like coming home every time you step on a Renaissance into a Renaissance fair.
That's cool.
Now, I know you do both the Age of Chivalry Fair and the Pirate Fest. Do you have a different character for each one, or do you go with the same type of character for both fairs?
So my character for fair is pretty much the same. I'm in a pirate guild. I'm the pirate fairy. Sometimes I will dress like a Viking because that's what my husband likes to do, and I want to support his love of fair as well. But even then, I'm a I'm a pirate fairy mostly.
Now, you say that you started going to the Ren Fair based on theater group. Was that a high school thing, or was that extracurricular that you just started to do out of a hobby? And how did that lead to going to the Ren Fair?
So I started doing theater in like eighth grade. In between eighth and ninth grade, my theater teacher from eighth grade suggested a theater group called Labor of Love. And I started doing theater outside of school with them. I did wind up going to the Las Vegas Academy here in town for technical
cool.
theater, doing mostly costuming and set design.
Nice.
So, what
Now,
other-
follow up on that. When going from theater to Ren Fair, going from theater to role playing, how do those lead to each other?
I think it went really well, actually. Being in the theater stuff helped me to. I do different voices now. Right now I'm running my own game, and like my NPCs have all sorts of different voices or characters, and it helps with character creation, because anytime you learn a role for theater, what you're doing is basically creating that character. And somebody may interpret Lady Macbeth one way, and somebody else is going to interpret that character another way. The same goes for D&D. You're creating this character and starting from the bottom up and deciding how that's going to look and what it's going to sound like from the moment you start anticipating that character, I think. So I think they really do go hand in hand, because it's all characters, and both theater and role-playing games are character-based.
Very
and,
true.
What other shows have you done? What shows did you do while you were in theater?
So let's see. The last one I did was Alice in Wonderland. Before that, we did Fame. We did Camelot. We did Romeo and Juliet. I think everybody does that one. We did Midsummer Night's Dream. I was the technical set design creator for Taming of the Shrew and Les Mis through my high school. And we actually took Honk, which is an Ugly Duckling musical. We took that to the International Thespian Conference out in Nebraska, which was really cool. And I did a lot of costume work and set design on that one as well.
Super cool.
So, what is the guild that you belong to? And tell us a little bit about it.
So I belong to our Renland, which is a pirate guild here in Las Vegas. It was created, I want to say 11 or 12 years ago, maybe longer. Amy and Kitty, who started the guild, they wanted a place where there weren't a lot of rules and structure, and there wasn't all this hubbub about climbing the ranks, and they wanted to get away from the drama of normal Renaissance guilds. So they created this guild. I joined about 7 years ago, is what I was told at our last meeting. I was like, has it been 7 years? It's been 7 years. I really like it. Amy runs a very eclectic ship. Many of the people at the Renaissance Fair call us the Island of Misfit Toys. We've got pirates and gypsies and Vikings and fairies and barbarians and all sorts of different people in our guild. And we basically do things like tarot reading and kind of standing out in front of our guild and mini performance type stuff. And then at October Fair, we also sell some of our creators that are in our guild, sell some of the things that they make throughout the year. I personally sell pirate hats that I put together throughout the year. So it's a lot of fun to just go and be with my family and entertain the crowd.
Yeah, I used to belong to our Renland many years ago, and Amy and Kitty are just awesome people. And this is one of those guilds that, as you said, they allow anybody in, and everybody is welcomed with open arms. And drama just stays outside, and it's really fun, and it's a great atmosphere when you're with them.
That's unfamiliar to me, actually. I was only ever in one, I guess technically two, but the very first guild I was with, I want to say it was just kind of a passing interest, although ironically that was my first exposure into Renaissance fairs. You might remember that one, Don. You actually kind of led me down that path through D&D into Renaissance fairs. But the second Renaissance guild that I was actually more seriously with, I actually went 2 years in a row, so I guess that makes it somewhat of a commitment. It was just so filled with drama and unnecessary, just piddly stuff that I just couldn't enjoy the experience as much as I wanted to. I actually had a much more enjoyable time when I just kind of went independently and enjoyed everything on my own.
Well, the only thing that that I would love to see more in our local Renaissance Fair and our local Pirate Fest is fewer ropes around the campsites. Everyone just walls off their campsites. Yes, I can understand walling off your personal stuff because you don't want anybody rummaging through your sleeping quarters and everything like that. But I would love to see more wide open area where people feel more welcomed coming into their campsite, instead of having like guards at the door and you have to ask permission to go in. And it sort of takes away a little bit of that. I'm originally from the East Coast, and there's a Renaissance fair out there called Age of Chivalry that my wife and I absolutely love. No ropes anywhere. They have permanent structures. They have shows that are going on. It is a beautiful fair that has no restrictions. I mean, they do have like the cast only places, but that's just, it brings the whole thing to life.
Well, see, just to speak to that point, when I was involved in the guild that was actually my job. Was the whole camp was roped off, and I was standing at the gate to like admit people in, or to kind of keep track of, hey, have you seen this person? Yeah, they left 20 minutes ago. They said they were headed this direction or what have you. But to kind of elaborate more on the drama in that respect, there was a specific purpose to me being there, because one of the big guys in the guild was dating somebody who had previously been involved with someone else in Ren Fair. God forbid this never happens, I can only imagine. And it was very much like, he might come here and start something with us, and we want to avoid drama at all costs. So if you see him coming, you have to alert the rest of the guild. I'm like, why? So we can all gang up and beat him down to a pulp? Or what's the purpose here?
Well, that's the thing, too, is that some guilds, they require you to spend like the entire weekend in character doing a job, that you're not getting paid for.
Right.
Whereas with our Renland, it's like, hey, can you watch this area for a couple of hours, and then you can go off and do whatever you want, and so that's like one of the biggest advantages to that particular guild, is the fact that it's, hey, we're asking you for a couple hours to help out, to be part of the out front entertainment, and then the rest of the time is yours.
Yeah.
We typically, you have one of two options. You can either be part of the tarot booth, which is kind of our main, what is the word? Money maker, I guess. I know there's a word that I can't think of. Or you can do what's called guild duty, which is basically just kind of standing around near the front. We don't have a front gate or a front door, but just making sure that people who are really drunk don't come in.
Hey.
People don't come in and leave their kids in the cuddle puddle and take off. Things like that. Just kind of, we're not policing who can come in or anything like that, but we have had issues where people will literally like come in with a gaggle of kids, and their kids will start playing with our kids, and then mom and dad will run off to the pub, and we'll be sitting there going, whose kids are these? Like, where did they come from? So we do have somebody kind of, I guess, watching the guild yard area to make sure that, oh, such a cute puppy, to make sure that all of the things go the way they're supposed to.
And one of the things it wasn't a task. I mean, I actually enjoyed doing this, but I helped entertain Sterling for a while, when he was little, and I was his favorite beat up toy, and stuff like that. So, there is actually a photo online of me lying on the ground being beaten up by a gaggle of kids with wooden pony head.
Oh my God.
Sticks.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I remember that because the kids were Sterling, Carmen, who was V's granddaughter, and a couple of the grandkids from Talon and Calypso, and those kids just went to town. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I'm crawling, and it's like, help me, and all the adults are standing there laughing. It's like, I need help.
Oh, goodness. So
Now, is this the only Ren Fair that you've done, or have you traveled to do others?
So I stick with our Renland, but we have done, we do the Ren Fair out in Havasu, Lake Havasu, Arizona. There's one in Yuma, Arizona that we do regularly. So Yuma is usually the end of January, and Lake Havasu is mid to late March. And then there's one called Camelot and the Pines, which is, I think, in Kingman, which we have tried to go to the last couple of years, but things being what they are, sometimes it's hard to get away. And then there's a contingent of our group, I haven't gotten to do it yet, but they go out to California for the pirate invasion that's out there. So I think that's in San Diego or
Long Beach.
Long Beach, that's right. I haven't gone, so I wasn't sure.
now, in regards to role-playing games themselves, how long have you game mastered your own games, and how long did you play before getting involved in that facet, if at all?
So I've been doing DM or GM for about 5-6 years now, on and off. Usually I have some really good friends who all really kind of want to try the DM thing. So we kind of switched off and did a bunch of things. And so it's been about 5 years since I started running my first game. Of course, as the things go, that one kind of fizzled out after about a year. But I started playing when I was 14 and like actively being involved at 16. So probably a good 15-20 years between when I started playing and when I started doing DM. Mostly because most of the games were my brother's games, and he likes to DM and he likes to be in charge.
Understood.
Now, do you have a homebrew campaign where you made up the entire world yourself, or are you using things like Baldur's Gate or Forgotten Realms?
So right now the game I'm running is a homebrew. When I took over from my boyfriend who was DMing before, I had just started rereading Wheel of Time because it was just announced that they were going to have the TV show coming out. So it kind of started there with like a big chasm that had opened up. And then I watched Shadow and Bone. So my thing now, there's like a dark, and they're all exploring the dark, and they're stuck in the dark, and it's been a lot of fun. I like to take reference from all sorts of other places. They're about to go into what one of the characters called the Deep Underground, which is going to be kind of like a Journey to the Center of the Earth kind of thing, where it's, instead of being dark and dank down there, it's going to be like, how did this world explode up underneath everything? So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to get them to that point. They're taking a long time.
That's pretty cool.
Dan DMs our games and stuff, but I just have to show this off.
That's awesome.
Very nice, very nice.
For those who can read, it says, "Because I'm the DM, that's why."
Now, in regards to what you were saying there, Tink, as far as you like to draw sources from all different areas to kind of influence your game, that's very similar to what I do as well. Like, nothing is really off limits. Final Fantasy has definitely kind of been one of the largest influences for me, but Star Wars is a big one as well, and Lord of the Rings, and so many other different series that I'll pull things here and there from. And hearing what you were just saying there in regards to the hidden subterranean world that's actually like a beautiful place, that kind of reminds me of an old Ninja Turtles episode where they go underneath the surface and it's like the land before time, and there's dinosaurs and stuff living under there. And just instantly I was like, I wonder if she saw that same episode and that was part of the draw for the inspiration there, or if it was something different.
So I know which episode you're thinking of, and absolutely that there's definitely a lot of Ninja Turtles in my past. Actually, the thing that really got me, there used to be a TV show called Land of the Lost. And really that one was primarily it. I'm also very into reading. So Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth is a big one for me. And that's kind of what I've seen several interpretations of via media, movies and things like that. So it's kind of an amalgamation of all these different ones. I think that idea of this subterranean level has always been something in the consciousness of people. I think we like to believe that things like dinosaurs and these woolly mammoths and all these creatures didn't actually die out. They just kind of went underground, or they went to some great place where it's like a utopia for them. And I really like to play on those types of things. My characters are currently hunting down a Leviathan, so it's going to be a lot of fun to get them to that point where they can actually fight the Leviathan down in the deep underground.
You know,
Nice.
Speaking of Land of the Lost, Wesley Ewer and Kathy Coleman hang out a lot at the Star Trek convention every year here in Vegas, and I love seeing them because they're really cool to talk to. They'll take photos with you. They have a slee stack that sometimes that is with them and everything. But speaking of game inspiration, have you ever gotten your game inspiration from cake? Like a particular
Pivot.
flavor of cake
Pivot.
that you know that made you think of a campaign type of scenario, just based on cake.
I can't say that cake has ever, inspired anything, but my characters have eaten cake. We actually had a birthday here that was somebody's birthday, and it was around the same time we were doing the game, and so randomly I chose one of the characters and we made it their birthday in the game too. So they all had to sing
Nice.
happy birthday to that character, and that was funny. And the barkeep did not know what cake was. It was funny.
Now, what type of cake do you think elves would prefer over dwarves versus like halfling cake?
So dwarves are really going to go in for actually more of like a tiered cake, like a truffle thing. So they're going to have like the chocolate truffle thing where it's like all sorts of decadent. Whereas elves are going to be more like a lemon cake or a carrot cake. Halflings are really going to be into the funfetti cake.
She was ready with that answer too. Like, that was not the first time she's been asked that question before. Like, it came up in a D&D trivia night once upon a time, and almost like a Jackbox game or something, and she had the best answers on the board and got all the points.
I'm thinking about dwarves, maybe a marble cake.
That's funny. I was thinking like a very thick fruit cake, like something that you have to like really chew and work at to eat, because the dwarves would insist on it being a very hearty and thick bread.
Yeah, maybe dwarven cake needs to be something that they can dip in mead.
While I've never been
Rum cake.
inspired... Oh, rum cake, yep, very good. While I've never been inspired to create a story or campaign based off of cake, I can definitely see some similarities between the two, in that you want your campaign to be full of flavor and also layered on multiple levels for different characters, so that everybody can appreciate it on a different level.
Well, it's better than using the onion analogy that's used in Shrek, you know. An onion has layers? Ogres have layers.
Cake
Onions
got
have
layers.
Parfait has layers.
Thank you, Valtheris, for the detour right there. That's one of our subscribers, one of our good longtime friends here on Roleplaying Unlimited, who, in the midst of a conversation on our Discord channel about what tonight's conversations were going to entail, he just randomly threw out cake. So we decided that we would implement that somewhere into the conversation, and thank you as always for being part of Roleplaying Unlimited there, brother.
Now, if you had the chance to go back into acting, what role would you want to play?
I haven't thought about that in a very long time. Captain Hook.
Oh, nice choice.
Considering Tinkar Bell, where did that name come from?
So I'm extremely clumsy, and it was actually a dig that my sister used to use anytime I fell. She would say I was like Tinkerbell because I was oh so light on my feet, and I just decided that I was going to go with it. Eventually, there were some other things that happened in my life that made it necessary for me to have a name that wasn't my given name. I'm actually named after my father, and he's a very egotistical gentleman, so he named two of his kids after himself, my older brother and myself. And just having the same name was not going to work. Then there's all sorts of different things that I'm into that require the use of a pseudonym or some sort of protection, so that when you're at those types of events, you're not linked to your mundane or your regular name. So it just became something that I used for everything, and now 99% of the people in the world that know me call me Ding.
Yeah, it's always good, you know, especially if you are in situations or groups that do specific things, that you do have that anonymity where you don't have somebody showing up at your work going, "Hey, I know you from..." Yeah, that's not a place you really want to go into.
It was very much the case in the old Nero days. I mean, I think many of us knew each other's real names, but that was kind of, the real name was the fake name. Everybody was referred to by their character name. Like, there's still, I want to say 20, 30 people in this city who, if they saw me, would be Callus or Cactus, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yep, I remember you from those days.
I've had that happen where I'm, walking, through the mall or something like that, and someone runs up and goes, "Draylin," and I'm like, I haven't heard that name in years.
Do you just turn around and Bonativka?
Bonativka, my friends, how are you doing? And then I stare at
if
him
it wasn't for
a
my beard, I'd probably still be known as Basil. But this is a new addition since then, and I don't look the same at all.
Have you ever tried LARPing, Tink?
I muted myself. That was silly. I did do LARPing. I actually, one of my friends back when I was 19 and 20, we did a whole LARPing campaign based off of White Wolf games.
Oh, nice, nice.
So that was weird and interesting. But they were all very into vampires and werewolves and mages and things, and so it was a lot of fun. I actually played a fairy because it was funny.
Oh yeah, the Fae were like really difficult because Carl had a comic book shop out here. I don't know if you know who Carl is, but he ran a LARP out here in Vegas for White Wolf, and yeah, when I became one of the storytellers, it's like he had all these Fae that's like, okay, I have all these powers and I can do this and this. It's like, oh, good grief, guys.
Yeah, they didn't like me playing a Fae because I just brought a whole bunch of glitter in satchels, and anytime I did magic, I threw it around. They were really upset about the crafter piece.
Yeah, but glitter never goes away. Ever.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was out of my element when I played the White Wolf stuff because for me that came after we actually played with the same group of people playing Star Wars live-action roleplay. And that's actually how a lot of the Role-Playing Unlimited crew came together 20-something years ago. But after that campaign fizzled out, we went back to the White Wolf game, which for a lot of people they were super excited about. They had established characters. I'm coming in now at the ground floor. Not really into vampires, not really into werewolves. Really, the scene in general was just kind of like, I'm more of a zombies kind of guy. So I played not a full-on zombie, but as close as the system would permit me, and I was basically crawling with bugs and everything. And like you brought glitter with you, I had a bag with like 200 plastic bugs and cockroaches and stuff in it. That when I would use my powers, the only power I had was repulsion because I didn't want anybody to mess with me. So my repulsion was based off of the fact that I was crawling in this disgusting mass of bugs. And anytime I used my power, I would just kind of fling bugs at the table and what have you, and people would be like, oh, God, he's so gross.
That is the awesomest thing I have ever heard.
I missed that character. I only played him like maybe for 3 or 4 sessions, but I was always very proud of that character because it definitely stood out in everybody's competing to see who the top vampire is, and I'm just like, yeah, there's no way I'll ever get close to that level, so I'm just gonna have fun on this level down here.
Oh yeah. Do you have any really cool stories from LARPing, Tink?
Not really. I mean, everybody was really weird about it, and I don't know, it was a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds doing stupid stuff in a park at night, because of course when you LARP White Wolf, you do it in a park at night because it's random and weird, and I don't know. You don't do it during the daytime. That would be silly. I did send somebody to the hospital at one point because they tried to grab me and I got scared and I elbowed them in the nose and broke a nose. That was funny. Well, it was funny for me. I don't think that they thought it was funny. They think it's funny now, though. Every now and then they'll bring up, hey, do you remember when you broke my nose? It's like, yeah, are we still friends? Yeah, sure, why not? Like, okay, then we're good.
So, do you get any stigma or any feedback from being a female gamer? Because most gamers are guys and everything. But do you find that it's difficult to get into a game, or do you find it easier to get into a game because most games don't have women in them?
I've been really, really lucky. Most of the games that I've been in, especially recently, have been with people that I already knew. Like I said, when we started gaming 2 years ago now, it was my current boyfriend was the one that started the game, and he's like, hey, I want to play. And I was like, ooh, D&D, me too. And he was just like, okay, yay, Jake's gonna come and play. And at the time, we actually had more women than men at the table when we started. To be honest, he and I are the only people still left in our group from that original first start of our game 2 years ago. It's really funny. But we have gamers. One of our gamers is in her 50s. We've got one that's, I think she's like 63. And we've got, and most of us are around our 30s to 40s. So it's like, it's a really good mix. And I have never really felt that gatekeeping that a lot of other women have rallied against. But I do know it exists. I see it online all the time, especially like the White Wolf forums I used to play in. There was a lot of gatekeeping with women in gaming. And I'm like, well, how are you supposed to have girls if girls aren't playing girls? And they're like, oh, we just play the girls ourselves. I'm like, that's a little telling. Not a bad thing, but it tells you something if all the boys are playing girls.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. I think I may have told this story before, but it's, way back in my college days, I had a girlfriend at the time and brought her into a D&D game, and the DM at the time actually liked her. So what he would do is he would have all the really good stuff happen to her and all the really bad stuff happen to my character, and in the hopes of, something like just, showing off to her about how much power he had as the DM and everything.
Oh,
and
man.
that relationship didn't last too long, but he ended up with her. I was like, well, good for both of you.
That is some low-hanging fruit right there. Like, I'm gonna use my power as a DM to get this girl. I mean, geez, that's just... Yeah. We've seen stuff like that, too, back in the Nero days. Like, we're not gonna name names, of course, but we know certain crews of people, like, that kind of stuff was a reality because this person had power and influence as the DM, and he hosted the games at his house. Like, it was very much a situation of manipulation and power, influence, and what have you.
Right, where some characters would get preferential treatment and where other characters would be, laid by the wayside. We'd be sitting there going, where did all these components come from? And, the guy who had all the components was like the brother of the guy who was running the game.
Yeah.
Like, well,
nepotism in gaming is not something you expect to encounter, but when it does, you're just kind of blown away by the fact that people can be so small with what's supposed to be an inclusive and fun and entertaining hobby.
That must have been well after my iteration of that game.
Yeah, you weren't there for a while, and a lot of the older, a lot of the more experienced people running the LARP, had already moved on, and it was being run by a previous player, who then ended up with all this power and everything.
I feel like I'm missing out. I played with my brother and my boyfriend, and I didn't get any nepotism.
So I have a question for you about original characters. I have this thing where there's a couple of characters that kind of bleed over into each iteration of game or different perspectives from, say, Ren Fair or this or that. Do you have OCs that do the same thing? You have a variation of them in different games or at Ren Fair or at Pirate Fest or what have you?
So my Ren Fair character doesn't really bleed over. There's another aspect of my life that's not appropriate to talk about that kind of does bleed over sometimes. Mostly my thing is I have these characters that I've created over time that have literally gone from campaign to campaign that I've DM'd. So I have a turtle named Shelly that is like this pirate, far traveler, monk. And then I have my big bad evil guy is named Orin Dale, and I call him a necrodancer. It was actually inspired by something one of my best friend's kids said to me. He was like, it would be really cool. He plays music to raise the dead. And I was like, okay, that's a thing. I got to do this. So he's kind of like this bard / necromancer that like makes these weird, intricate puzzles having to do with music and dancing that you have to get through. The first time I used him, he had a whole graveyard of centaurs come up as ghosts, and then he had zombies dancing on the inside, and then you had to get through a whole level of skeletons that were doing stuff. And yeah, I wound up playing songs for each of the things that were just like really funny songs, but there was all sorts of different puzzles you had to get through to get to what you thought was going to be him, but it turns out it wasn't him. It was just a portal that you had to take down so that all of the dead things would stop dancing. But it was a lot of fun. And so that character is actually going to wind up being the big bad evil guy for my current game as well. He kind of keeps popping in and doing things. My boyfriend's kids live with their mom out of state, and they were playing with us this summer while they were in town. Well, the last game they were going to be with us, this necrodancer, one of them was an aberrant dragon, and the necrodancer took him over and made them kill each other. So I do have characters that bleed from game to game, but not really from other sources in my life into game.
If this character is a villain for your campaign here, would it be fair to say that he might be challenged in the final act to, like, a dance-off?
I'm really hoping one of my
Oh, we lost you on the push to talk.
Oh, that better? Okay, so yeah, one of my players is an artificer bard, and I'm really hoping he pulls out the Peter Quill, hey, dance off thing. I'm crossing my fingers that as soon as he realizes that's what it is, he tries to do a dance off.
And you mentioned you make and sell pirate hats. Do you have other artistic talents as well?
I can't draw or paint or anything like that, but I can put together I sew, I do crochet, and I make blankets and scarves and hats and sweaters and things, usually for my kids for Christmas. I make fairy falls, which I actually have one here. If you go to, they're just like yarn ponytail things that I sell at fair as well. I do a lot of woodwork, and I actually built my own Viking tent. So the Viking tent that I use every year at fair, I actually built from the ground up. So I cut all the wood, I stained it, I sewed the tent covering together, all of that I did by myself. So I've got some talents.
Now, we kind of brushed up against it earlier, and I use it too. I know Dan uses it. I'm sure Don uses it too. When you're creating either your own world or your own original character, how much influence do you take from, say, pop culture, be it a book you read, a show you watched, a particular movie, or anything like that? How much do you let it influence the creation of those things?
So somewhat, I would say. So like I said, currently my group is in the dark, which I kind of got from Shadow and Bone, but unlike theirs, which is kind of like this cloudy mist, mine is just this absolute darkness. So it's something that they can't even see in without, I decided that the only way to see is fairy fire. So every town or everything, or when they're traveling between, they have to have some sort of fairy fire to light the way, because it's one of those that's absolute black. So even with dark vision, you can't see anything. I do try to put my own little spins and elements into things. Mostly when I create characters, a lot of times they pop out of my head, but I do have a couple, like my monk, my turtle monk, was actually inspired by my friend Rico's character. He had a turtle monk that he called Uguay Angelo, which was this mix between Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles and Uguay from the Kung Fu Panda movies. And that really was my inspiration for Shelley, was his take on that. And then, like, I have a Leonine character that is very much taken from Puss in Boots from the Shrek movies. I even give her like this weird. It was supposed to be Spanish. It's not a Spanish accent though, because apparently I can't do
that. So when you're making up a character and you're coming up with these ideas for your character and such, what is like the one element that every character has?
Blue hair. I know that seems like really small and trivial, but probably about 7-8 years ago, I started dyeing my hair blue, and it really became kind of a signature thing for me. I don't feel like I'm myself if my hair's not blue. So pretty much all of my characters wind up having blue hair. And I'm not sure I really ever thought about it until you asked that question.
I know, because a lot of times whenever we make characters, and I know this myself, that there's usually one aspect to all my characters that link to every other character in some way, and it's just unconscious, but it just ends up popping in there at some point or another.
What do you think your commonality is there, Mr. Evil Don?
Mine is the love for the fencing sword, for something, for the small, fast, quick blades. I don't play many archers. I don't play many huge hack and slash, but Denshar had his daggers, which were really quick. My current pirate character for the campaign that hasn't been played yet is using a rapier. So there's a lot of fencing in my particular characters.
I was going to point out that my guess would have been a general wondering as to what the CR is of the opponent standing across the table from them.
No, that's my out of character thing. That's my OOC thing that goes from game to game to game. It's like, what's the CR of this thing?
Now, kind of in a different vein, I'm a true introvert, so I have stage fright and I have a hard time. As a DM, when you have players that are either bashful or actual true introverts, how do you get them to come out as their character?
I kind of let them take the lead in some various role. So like, my husband sometimes plays with us, and I don't know how much. Yeah, my husband's an introvert. He hasn't been out of the house except to go to work in the last 2 years. So when I play with someone like him, I try to make them in charge of something. In charge of the wagon, or in charge of the horses, or something that has to do with their character. I try to put them in charge of. His was, he thought it was really cool that his character could make water. So I put him in charge of keeping the group hydrated. And so it became this quirk of his character that after every battle or while they were on the road, he would just, start passing out the water skins and being like, you need to hydrate.
High quality H2O.
Absolutely. And he got into an argument at one point with one of our other characters who refused to drink the water and would only drink mead. So he had this whole thing. He's like, no, I made the water. You have to drink the water. But yeah, trying to get them in charge of something. Oh my God, another cute puppy.
I say hello, Warren.
Trying to get them in charge of something so that they feel like they have a job to do really seems to help introverted people play a character.
Good boy.
Yeah, that's always a tough job. I mean, even coaxing myself to get NPCs out. I know Justin does it, but he's not a true introvert. But he uses his hat to bring out Earl, and I would do the same thing to bring out one of my iconic characters, Basil. I have a velvet beret I got at a Ren Fair in Atlanta many, many, many years ago. I still have it floating around, but I have different props to help me bring those out. Have you ever used physical props at your table? Like a common thing is the health potions full of dice, so you roll the dice right out of the jar.
Oh, you're pushed to talk over there.
Yeah, we lost you on the push to talk right there, unfortunately.
Is that working better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. I don't know if you saw it in the stream there, but Don redeemed the channel points so that I have to talk like Sebastian for the next 5 minutes. So that's why my voice got a little different right here.
Yeah, Sebastian is actually one of the dogs, and whenever the dog would talk, that's the voice that he would use to
That's
make the
my
dog
voice.
talk. So it became one of the points things that we could spend on Twitch to make him talk like that for a certain period of time.
That's right. They made me talk like this during the epic conclusion of Agent Orange last night. It was ridiculous. I'm trying to describe a horrific scene filled with blood and guts, and I gotta talk like this.
So Tink, now would be a great time to ask Dan some questions and get some really interesting answers.
All right, so I know you guys just finished Agent Orange, which, by the way, I haven't seen the last episode, but I was keeping up with them. So for what was your inspiration for the whole world there? Was that something that you built up yourself, or was that something that was part of a book or something?
Well, for me, that was an idea that I had been sitting on for about 15 years, because I have always loved the original black and white Night of the Living Dead. And I always wanted to have like a short campaign that was kind of like that, set in the old days before technology and everybody could be like cut off and easily stranded like there is in that movie. That was kind of the original thought, but I couldn't find a tabletop system that I thought would facilitate that story idea. So eventually in 2013 it all just kind of came together, and I thought, okay, we're gonna do this in the early 1970s. And what made it extra special was that my dad was in a band at that time in the early 70s, and he released 2 records with that band. So if you've been watching the Agent Orange stuff, like a lot of the music that we use in that is from his band back in the 70s. So that made it extra special for me to be able to build that story. And it was kind of something that we did like every year around the Halloween season. We would play a few games of Agent Orange. And this story was extra special because we got to play it with some of the older players and some of the newer players as well. And it's the first time we streamed it, so that was a lot of fun.
And
I will say watching it was a lot of fun too. I really have enjoyed the story arc. I am really excited to watch the last one.
and Justin's Earl is just is basically a fan favorite. You know, out of all the characters, if we took a poll, which we're not going to because we already know that Earl would be the favorite character of everyone. But it is one of those things where just that whole redneck that he pulls out in there, and you know, it's just I try to keep from cracking up when I'm hearing him go into like 900-mile-an-hour speech.
Yeah, I think he might be my favorite character. Kind of reminds me of oh gosh, Mater from the Cars franchise. Only a lot faster talking. You know, it's kind of like there's a lot in there.
Oh man. Yeah, that is something that never ceases to amaze me. I mean, some of these guys, like Don and Justin, I've been gaming with, blessedly so, for the last 20 years or so. It's just awesome to kind of have that consistency in your gaming group and still kind of have people that can kind of come and go. So you have a solid foundation, but there's still that fluidity in the gaming experience. But Justin and Don are like in every campaign that I ever run for 2 decades now. And Justin just never fails to impress in designing character concepts that are just vastly unique and different from anything he's done before. He does have the commonalities and some traits, like he can be very stubborn with his characters at times. I find that's kind of a common trait I find with a lot of his characters. But otherwise, there's always a lot of uniqueness in there as well that's a lot of fun to watch.
And I mean, it's a lot of the new stuff that comes out from D&D all the time, which gives that opportunity to create new types of characters, like, you know, putting in catfolk, like putting in the Dragonborn and everything like that, you know. And then especially when you've got your main character classes, and now you've also have, okay, every so often they'll come out with a new book that goes, okay, here's some extra classes that you could put in to those, like the subclasses on those.
I'm really excited about the new Wild book with the rabbit folk and the fairies in it. I've got ideas. I've got lots of ideas.
Interesting.
I like homebrew quite a bit, so I'm working on a character that's rabbit folk fairy artificer. So it's basically me.
Well, here's something, and I'm kind of asking this on Dan's behalf, because Dan has this problem that he runs into all the time. How do you get your players to accept a power, ability, or scenario that's not in the rules? So, you know, you've got the rules lawyers who are like, you can't do that because, and Dan runs into that all the time. But how do you deal with it? Because everything you said, you've created a lot of unique ideas. How do you get your players to go along with those ideas?
So we have a phrase at our table, the DM is God. The DM can change rules if they want to. The player's handbook and all the different source books are guides, not rules. So we do have some kind of house rule type things that we go with. And they're kind of consistent from DM to DM within our group. I only really have one player that's a rules Nazi, and to be honest, a lot of times the way we get around that is letting him DM.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then you can turn the tables on them.
Yeah, for my part, I just kind of have to put my head down and persist and barrel through with those plot devices and kind of deflect, because my modus operandi used to be that I would kind of give the players the peek behind the curtain, and this is what I'm doing, and here's the mechanic I've developed for it, and in so doing, I just opened myself up to more criticism and more belligerent behavior at the tabletop at times. So now all of that is just completely obscured, and it's very much just like, okay, the narrative is taking over now, and we just kind of roll through it, and it tends to work for us better in that regard.
And I also feel for you, Dan, because there's a lot of times where it's like, I see the hint that you're throwing down, and it's like, okay, here's where there's going to be a curveball that we're not going to be able to do anything about. That, you know, hey, this character is making heroic sacrifice, so we're going to all roll with this. And then you've got all these other players who are like, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And it's like, dude, he threw out the curveball. He threw out the, hey, this is going to happen no matter what you guys do.
I've never seen so many people at once. Like, one person jumps in between the Balrog and the party and is like, "Fly, you fools!" And then somebody else jumps in front of him and is like, "No, you fly!" And then somebody else jumps in front of that person and is like, "No, actually, I'll be sacrificing myself today if you don't mind. You know, actually, I thought today would be a good day to die." And it just becomes this never-ending process of, wow, I guess everybody just wants to play a new character.
And it's a good thing I was like playing my evil, assassin character. Where it's like, I'm going to stand here and die. And it's like, see ya.
Now, do you prefer to DM or to play?
It depends on the DM that I'm playing with. So,
Yep,
Oh, we lost you again.
It's my finger keeps jumping off the push to talk. So yeah, with my friend who's a rules lawyer, I prefer to play. With my boyfriend, it's give or take. He can DM, I can DM. We have very similar styles. So it's a toss up. I do enjoy running the game just because I get to throw the curveballs. I like watching them scramble. The current game that we're in, I had a town where everybody was just nice.
That's
they
fun.
are still trying to figure out why everybody was just nice.
Oh, that's fun.
Here's kind of interesting, and I think Dan's heard this story about a dozen times too. But it's there was this one time where I was GMing, and this guy found a ring of wishing, but I didn't tell him what it was, and he was wearing the ring of wishing, and it had one wish in it, and he went through this town and failed every interaction check, and everyone was just being a jerk to him. And he just looked at me and he goes, I wish every asshole of the world would just disappear.
Oh, man.
And he just hears in his head, granted, and the ring vanishes. And it's like, what? And then a couple days later, I go, okay, everybody has to go to the bathroom. And it's like, you've never made us do this before. And you pull down your pants and nobody has an asshole. And so they couldn't poop because nobody had an asshole. So every single living creature on the planet died because it couldn't poop.
That always reminds me of the final act of the movie The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you ever saw it, that deals with the cloning. When I told you to go fuck yourself, I didn't mean for you to take it literally.
That literal thing is very big with genies and wishes and things, is it being extremely literal. I actually had a discussion with a friend once, and I am convinced that all genie are autistic. Or they're like Drax. Everything is literal, so they can't differentiate.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I always thought that they were just truly evil at heart, but I think your explanation makes a lot more sense.
That'd be kind of cool, is to make Drax as a genie and have him show up.
Yeah, even though he's not voiced by Batista, the Drax that they put forth in the new Guardians of the Galaxy video game is pretty fantastic as well. Like, all the characters are pretty true to what we've come to expect from the movies, so it's a lot of fun just wandering around in the game. Complete different tangent here. But there's one scene where you're playing and Rocket and Groot are leading the group. And of course, as a player who's played these types of games several times, I see that Rocket and Groot head down the left path, and I want to go check out the right path. And as I'm starting to go down that way, the AI has Rocket say, "This is the way to go." And me playing Quill says, "How do you know?" And Rocket just goes, I just do, okay? I'm like, well, that's not satisfactory for me. So I go check out the right path. It leads to a dead end. As soon as I get to the dead end, I hear Rocket in the distance like, "Oh yeah, you feel like an ass now, don't you?" And as I turn around and I'm walking back, you hear, yeah, the walk of shame. I'm like, oh man, this game is freaking brilliant. You can just wander around and enjoy the dialogue between the different characters.
Haven't gotten that game yet, so that's got to be on my my list to get.
Oh, yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, I was
you
just
you
about
will
to say-
love it.
Just about to say the same thing. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's fantastic so far. I don't know how far into it I am. I think I've completed Chapter 3, and then I kind of put it down because I'm on a retro gaming kick again with the new Grand Theft Auto remastered, what have you. But the Guardians of the Galaxy is still up there in my current playlist because it is a lot of fun.
Kind of along the retro vibe, where did you start generationally? Let me rephrase that. What edition of the game, Dungeons and Dragons, did you start with? And have you dabbled or looked at any of the older iterations of the game?
So the first game my brother wanted to play, I believe he had actually found a very old original copy of D&D at a yard sale. So we actually started with like the one that came with all the little figures and the pre-made characters and things like that. I played a lot of 3.5 and then kind of skipped over 4 and now play a lot of 5e.
So, which do you like better? Did you like 3.5 better, or do you like the 5e better?
Sorry, my push to talk was having an issue. It depends on the rule, actually. Some of the rules and some of the things that you could do with 3.5, I like a lot better. And then some of the things that have now come out for 5e, I like better. So I kind of tend to refer back to old 3.5 rules if I don't like what it says in 5e, and just make my players play the way I want them to.
That's a common practice, and I think there's a lot of sense to it as well, considering that 5e is just the offspring of 3.5. They've just condensed so much of it down. And both systems have their merits. I think 3.5 is a more complete experience, whereas 5e is a much more cohesive experience, much more balanced.
Well, I also think with 3.5, with 5e, the most important thing to me is that wizards and spellcasters are viable throughout the entire game. I remember, 3.5, you make your wizard, you have 2 spell slots at first level, and it's like you walk into the first combat, zap, zap, I'm done, guys, have a nice day.
Well, that's when you start wading in there with your 1die4 -1 dagger. What's the matter with you?
Oh, I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, you might be able to deal upwards of 3 points of damage, man. That could be a real game changer.
And especially since you only have like 3 or 4 hit points anyways.
Exactly. You got to serve as a meat shield where you can.
Yeah, those. I haven't started a campaign off at level 1 in years. I had a group that I was playing with where they started us all off on level 1, and I was a barbarian, and my job was to protect the princess. And I got an apple thrown at my head, and it killed me. So
almost like gamers, it's like your irrational fear of water. Well, we'll just knock him out. You killed me.
My record is with the Enemir Pinnacle campaign that we ran in 2017. Jason, you were a part of that in the early stages, and I think you might have been part of this entire segment. But it was really supposed to be a throwback. It was a 5e game, but it was meant to have like a 2nd edition or maybe even a early 3rd edition feel. Very slow progression, very heavily focused on the plot. We went 8 sessions before they hit level 2. And we had a lot of fun with that level 1. After that, the game definitely exponentially increased. I think we played 60 games total, and they were level 13, 14 by the time we were all done with it. But those first 8 games at level 1 were very memorable to me and had a lot of throwback to those early D&D experiences that we had before.
Was that the halfling that I played?
You were playing Phineas Luck. That was the pre-gen. The first time I had done a pre-gen campaign as well. It was my homebrew world, and I did pre-gen for all the characters, and I assigned the characters to the different players. This was something just radically different than anything I had ever done before. I imagine a lot of GMs would have a hard time selling this to their group. Their players would not go for it. They want to create their own characters. They want to have a handle on the creation process. So this was very different than anything we had done, but because we had played together for so long, it just felt like something that our group could tackle. And I think at least half the group told me that they kind of preferred it because it took a lot of the character creation thought out of their heads, and they kind of liked having a role assigned to them that they could then kind of put their own perspective on.
So this is also part of the show where you get to promote whatever you want to promote at this particular time. So do you, if you want to promote selling your hats, if you have a website, if you have, you want to, give shout outs to various people, organizations, things, this is your time right here. This is your spotlight.
That's what I don't actually have an answer for. I'm kind of in between a lot of stuff right now. I don't do the hats thing on Etsy or anything like that anymore. They weren't popular there. Yeah, I don't really have anything going. Well, at least I don't have anything going on that's really appropriate for this channel. A lot of my stuff is other stuff, but let's see. So I do keto, which is a lifestyle, and my boyfriend and I have a channel on YouTube that's Keto Dragon. So it's KETO and then Dragon is DRGN. So we have some content up there, and we're currently working on a series of food-related videos to kind of help those people who are struggling get into that. So we should be uploading some of that stuff in the next couple of months and getting that together. But and I can talk about that.
Very cool. It's definitely been a pleasure having you here, Tink. We had a lot of fun talking about Renaissance Fair's role-playing games, and we worked in the cake conversation as promised there. So, yeah, lots of fun tonight. Thank you so much, Let's Get Zesty, for hanging out tonight and for the follow as well. We definitely enjoyed having you here. So I'm going to turn it over here to Jason, Evil Dawn, and Tinkerbell to say their farewells for the night before we close it out.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next week. And looked like we lost Tink there for a second. Have a good one, everyone.
Yep. We enjoy having you guys watching our show. And Tink, I got to get another hug from you at Pirate Fest.
Absolutely. Hugs all around. I can't wait. Pirate Fest is in April. Hopefully I see you before then. If not, we'll make sure we do those hugs. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you so much, Tink. Thank you all for being here tonight. Have a great evening. We will catch you this coming Tuesday with some of the RU crew. We're going to be playing Gloomhaven, the Steam version. And next Wednesday, we will have another episode of Role-Playing Unlimited Out of Character. Special guest yet to be announced. Thank you very much, all. Have a great evening. Are you with us?